Hello everyone, my name is Scott Bullock. Today I'm going to walk you through an install of the VM Access Proxy for Snow Software's Commander. Today's installation is going to be on a VMware platform, but the same instructions are also relevant for installing on other hypervisors or public clouds. This diagram gives you a high-level view of what an installation of a VM Access Proxy might look like in an environment in a DMZ setting. Remember, you're typically using the VM Access Proxy if you're allowing remote users or somebody from outside to broker a console connection or an RDP session to a virtual machine inside your network. Definitely best to set these inside of some sort of a DMZ. You do have to do some port forwarding, things of that nature. We definitely recommend installing an SSL certificate on the VM Access Proxy just because it is public. Most customers will give it its own IP address and public DNS name specific to the region and or cloud that it's serving, as it will help differentiate if you have more than one VM Access Proxy in your environment. Another thing to note, it's always best practice to make sure that you're doing time synchronization. If you're in a VMware environment by host, if you are in public cloud, make sure you set an NTP server inside your VM Access Proxy, so that you're not going to run into any time skew issues when it comes to sharing tokens for auth when it comes to opening console. We're going to start off by creating a new virtual machine inside of VMware. Obviously give the virtual machine a name. And then select the data center and location that you would like to place this virtual machine, keeping in mind that if you are exposing this to the internet, you probably want to put this in some sort of a DMZ. Pick the storage that you wish to place the VM on. Select your compatibility. Select your guest OS and family for the virtual machine. In this case, it's going to be Ubuntu Linux 64-bit. 2 CPUs, 2 gigs of memory to start. Hard disk size at its default, as the VM Access Proxy is relatively small, and choose the network that you choose to present the service on. Make sure you mount your ISO file, selecting Ubuntu 20.04. That is the current supported distro that we use the VM Access Proxy with. Once that's done, make sure you mount the ISO drive so it's set to connect on the next start. Hit Next and click Finish. Now let's start up the virtual machine and get the installation underway. Now as the VM starts up, a couple things you want to make note of. Obviously, make a note of the username and password that you create when you're setting up the virtual machine. You are going to need this later. And when you're adding base services, you are going to want the OpenSSH server, RDPN or SSHN. As the installation gets underway, we do recommend that you use a static IP address for the VM Access Proxy. For this example, I'm just using DHCP. When you're configuring the disk, we are going to just use the whole disk. There's no custom configuration or anything like that. Standard defaults should be just fine. Make note of your username and password. You are going to need these later for configuration, especially for reboots. On the next screen where you see the option to install an OpenSSH server, highly recommend doing this. It'll just make things easier down the road to SSH into the box and copy your commands and then just running them without having to type them out every single time. Once the installation is complete, log in with your new username and password. First thing that we're going to do, now that we're logged into the console, is run an update, make sure we have the latest packages on the server. Next, we will want to install the Docker dependencies for the VM Access Proxy services. Now that that install is done, what we need to do is add the current user to the Docker group so it can run the commands without needing sudo and access the files for the VM Access Proxy. Next on the list, we're going to edit the rc.local, and we're going to add some custom network rules to this file. Once you've pasted in the rules to allow 443 to 9443, save the file and close it. We're going to edit the system.d, ensure the network rules are run in the event of an appliance restart. Set the permissions on the file, and enable the rule and restart the appliance. After the reboot, after this point, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to SSH in or use PuTTY if you're on a Windows box to complete the following commands. We recommend going to the Snow Commander support downloads page and grabbing the latest URL of zip for the VM Access Proxy just in case it's been updated since this video was recorded. We're going to download the zip with the wget command, and then we're going to create the directories required for the VM Access Proxy. Next, we are going to add the current user. Next, we are going to add the Docker group, permission to those folders so they can run the VM Access Proxy. We'll then unzip the VM Access Proxy files in the folder, change to that directory. Next, we're going to run a command to log into the Docker container registry and build and start the VM Access Proxy. To finish this off, if you run docker compose up-d to start the daemon, you'll see it start to pull all the requirements that we need to run the VM Access Proxy container on this system. This can take a couple minutes to complete. Now that the VM Access Proxy is installed, we're going to navigate over to Commander. In Commander, under the admin console, if you navigate to Configuration System and select the Integrations tab, if you click Add to add a new integration, select VM Access Proxy from the list. In the pop-out window, enter your proxy URL, which is just going to be https:// plus the IP address of your access proxy, :8443. If you've given some type of a DNS name to your proxy with a static IP, make sure you enter that here. When you select Test, it should detect the version of the proxy you have installed, also telling you that your access proxy is reachable from Commander. Give your VM Access Proxy name and a host IP. Make sure you assign this proxy to the infrastructure that it's assigned to. So if you've got this installed in VMware and it's stuck to a region, make sure you're selecting the right VMware, or if it's in a public cloud like Azure or AWS, that you are specifying the access proxy location closest to the host that it's going to be serving. On the summary page, just review your settings. You'll see that it's enabled, and you'll see what you have it set to from a VM session access. You'll see your targets, and click Finish to continue. That's all there is to setting up a VM Access Proxy in VMware. I hope you found this video useful.